The loudest silence is the one that echoes inside the person who thought they had the upper hand. They went silent, didn't they? No warning, no goodbye. Just vanished like a magician who doesn't care if the audience claps. One day they were laughing at your jokes, texting like they couldn't get enough of you. And now, nothing. You watch them post, you see them online, but your name, it's not even in their notifications anymore. And that, my friends, messes with your mind. It feels personal. It feels cold. It feels like rejection. But I'm here to tell you something most people never figure out. When they go silent, you get powerful. Hey folks, imagine this. You're in a forest and someone's running from you. You chase them. The faster they run, the faster you chase. But then suddenly, you stop. You stand still. And something strange happens. They slow down. They start looking back, wondering why you stopped, wondering if they lost their grip on your emotions. That, my friends, is the psychology of silence. It flips the script, because when you stop reacting, you become the one in control. You don't need to scream. You don't need to beg. You just need to disappear with purpose. And trust me, they feel it. Most people think silence means defeat. That if someone stops talking to you, it means you've lost them, or worse, lost your value. That's the biggest lie you've ever been sold. The truth? Silence is not weakness. It's leverage. It's the storm they never saw coming. It's the emotional vacuum that makes their ego collapse in on itself. Because while they expected you to chase, you chose to pause. And that pause, that's what drives them insane. They thought you'd beg, they thought you'd fold, they thought your self-worth depended on their words. But you're not here to be someone's emotional puppet. You're here to master your mind, and their silence is your training ground. You know what Marcus Aurelius said? The best revenge is to be unlike the one who wronged you. That means no petty games, no bitter replies, just strength, just growth, just distance. While they're busy wondering why you haven't broken, you're out there becoming unbreakable. Look, I get it. It stings. It's confusing. You want answers. You want closure. But let me tell you a secret. Closure is a gift they don't owe you, and peace is a gift you owe yourself. So instead of chasing their words, chase your purpose. Instead of replaying the past, rewrite your future. Turn their silence into your signal, their distance into your direction, their games into your growth. This is where everything shifts. This is where you take the pain and use it like fuel. This is where you stop checking your phone and start checking yourself. This is where you stop waiting for them and start building you. Because when they go silent, it's not the end. It's the beginning of the most powerful version of you. So here's what I want you to do right now. Type this in the comments. Silence made me stronger. Say it to yourself. Show it to the world. And if you're ready to go deeper, stay with me. Because in this video, we're not just going to survive their silence, we're going to master it. Let's flip the script together. Stay with me. Number 1. Silence feels like rejection, but it's really a revelation. Rejection doesn't mean you weren't good enough. It just means the other person failed to see what you carry. At first, silence feels like a slap in the face, a sudden void where their attention used to be. One moment they were interested, responding, laughing, watching your stories, and then silence. Cold. Unexplained. As if you never mattered. That's what hurts the most, right? It's not just the silence, it's the questions it leaves behind. What happened? Did I say something wrong? Was I not enough? This is where most people spiral. They fall into the trap of self-doubt, blaming themselves for something they cannot even name. They start to shrink, diminish, trying to become smaller, quieter, more pleasing, just to be acknowledged again. But what if I told you, my friends, that the silence wasn't meant to break you? It was meant to reveal you. Imagine a glass of muddy water. As long as it's shaken, you can't see what's really in it. But once it's still, everything becomes clear. Silence is that stillness. It's where truth settles. And when someone goes silent on you, it's not the end of something. It's the beginning of clarity. It shows you who's really there, who's really invested, who's capable of emotional maturity, and who's just a performer playing their part until it no longer benefits them. But I know what's creeping into your mind right now. What if they're just busy? What if they come back? What if I'm being too sensitive? That fear, that lingering hope, it's normal. We're wired to seek connection. We want resolution. We want answers. But sometimes not getting a reply is the answer. Most people won't tell you this, but I will. Sometimes the silence is louder than 1,000 lies, because someone who cares doesn't disappear. Someone who values you doesn't leave you confused. Silence is not random, it's a statement, and instead of interpreting it as a personal failure, you need to start seeing it as information. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And that couldn't be more true here. You're imagining everything you did wrong. You're replaying every message, rereading every conversation like it's a puzzle you have to solve. But what if I told you that puzzle isn't even yours to fix? Let me be blunt. If someone's silence makes you question your entire worth, it means you've handed them the keys to your emotional home. And that's where it all goes wrong. Because now they're not just someone who ghosted you, they're someone who owns your peace. And no one, I repeat, no one deserves that kind of control over your state of mind. This is where it gets hard, because rising from silence requires you to do something uncomfortable. It asks you to stop reaching out, to stop over-explaining, to stop waiting, and instead to face the fear of being alone with yourself. That's where power is born, not in the noise of their validation, but in the quiet of your own self-worth. Think about it. What if the silence isn't punishment, but protection? What if this distance is the divine saying, "They're not meant for where you're going"? What if this is your redirection? You see, folks, when you're too close to someone, you stop seeing yourself clearly. But silence gives you distance, and distance gives you vision. This moment, it's not a breakdown, it's a breakaway from neediness, from desperation, from overthinking, from waiting on people who were never qualified to hold your heart in the first place. So what do you do now? You rise. You stop checking your phone. You stop giving your soul to someone who can't even give you a response. You get back in the gym. You pick up that project you abandoned when they distracted you. You reconnect with people who never made you feel like you had to beg to be seen. And most importantly, you remember who you were before they made you question yourself. Because guess what? Their silence isn't your cage. It's your catapult. This is the launch pad. And while they're out there trying to get attention from the crowd, you're building a throne in solitude. And when you rise in silence, you don't just heal, you glow. They'll feel it, not in your messages, not in your likes, but in your absence. And trust me, absence speaks. It speaks in a language their ego doesn't understand, and their heart can't ignore. So I want you to write this in the comments right now. Their silence was my signal. Say it loud, type it proud. Show yourself, show them. Show the world that you're not a victim of their vanishing act. You're the star of your own comeback. This is how power is reborn. In the quiet, in the pause, in the stillness where most people panic. But you grow. And don't go anywhere. Because in the next section, we're going to talk about the trap they set when they go silent. And why not reacting is your greatest revenge. Stay with me. Number 2, they expect you to react. That's why you don't. The moment you react, you hand over your power. The moment you stay still, you take it all back. They're not just being silent. They're watching to see what you'll do next. Will you panic? Will you double text? Will you chase like they're the oxygen to your survival? That's what they're hoping for, because silence is more than absence. It's a strategy, a trap wrapped in confusion. And the moment you fall for it, they win. They expect you to fold. They expect your emotions to spill out uncontrollably. That's why they disappear without a word, because they want to see what power they still have over you. They're playing chess while you're stuck in emotional checkers. Every time you respond out of fear, you just moved your queen right into their trap. But what if you didn't move at all? Think of it like this. You're a fortress, strong, tall, grounded, but every time you react to their silence, you open the gates. You let them walk in and rearrange your peace like furniture in a room they never paid rent for. You hand them control over your heart, your thoughts, your sense of self-worth. That ends now. Because let me tell you, my friends, reaction is what they feed on. It's like emotional bait. They throw out silence and wait to see if you'll bite. Will you ask, "Did I do something wrong?" Will you send a sad emoji, hoping to stir their sympathy? Will you let them see your confusion, your ache, your need to be acknowledged? That's exactly what they want, your vulnerability without offering any of theirs. But what if, instead, you gave them nothing? Nothing is power. Nothing makes noise in their ego. Nothing forces them to wonder. You don't flinch. You don't chase. You don't try to force a connection that's already running on fumes. You give them the most unsettling response of all, stoic silence. Because while they expect desperation, you give them distance. It messes with them. It confuses them, because they don't know what version of you they're dealing with anymore. You're not the one who texts "good morning" even after being ignored. You're not the one sitting with a half-written message, praying they'll reply first. You're not the one begging to be seen by someone who isn't even looking. You're the one who pauses. And in that pause, you regain everything. Now, I know what you're thinking, but what if I lose them by not reacting? My friend, if silence is all it took to lose them, you never really had them. If the bond was so weak that it shattered the moment you stopped chasing, then what you were holding on to wasn't love. It was an illusion, a fantasy you kept alive by sacrificing your self-respect. Stoicism isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's the choice to feel deeply, but act wisely. To not hand over your soul every time someone pulls away. To remain grounded even when the wind tries to shake you. Marcus Aurelius didn't say, "Ignore your feelings." He said, "Master them." That's what you're doing now. You're mastering the urge to respond, to fix, to explain. Because the truth is, they already know why you're hurt. They just don't care enough to stop it. Let that sink in. And let that awaken you, because you deserve more than someone who uses silence as a weapon. You deserve connection that doesn't vanish in shadows. But you won't get that by chasing breadcrumbs. You get that by becoming the version of yourself who doesn't chase at all. Look at lions. They don't flinch when a smaller animal barks. They don't run around proving their worth. Their presence is enough. Their silence commands the room. That's the energy you adopt now, not out of ego. Out of evolution, out of understanding that you don't need to react to control, you just need to stop letting it control you. So next time you hear that familiar voice in your head say, "Maybe I should just reach out one more time," stop, breathe, remind yourself of who you're becoming. Because this isn't about ego, this is about honor, your dignity, your emotional discipline. You don't need to prove your worth to someone who already decided to test it. Let them wonder why you stopped. Let them question why you didn't fall apart this time. Let them feel the silence they created, but now with the tension of your indifference wrapped around it. That's when everything shifts. That's when the hunter realizes they've become the prey. Because when you don't react, you force them to sit with what they did. You force them to face the echo chamber of their own silence. And if they feel nothing, then good. Now you're free to move on. But if they do feel it, and believe me, they will, they'll crawl back trying to regain what they thought they could easily discard. But by then, you won't be in the same place anymore. You'll have grown, you'll have leveled up, you'll have moved forward, because you didn't break, you didn't chase, you paused. And in that pause, you rose. So here's your challenge, right now. Type this in the comments. I don't react, I rise. Let the world see it. Let yourself feel it. And let them feel the shift without ever saying a word. Because what's coming next? It's the part where your silence doesn't just hold power, it builds empires. Stay with me, because the next section, that's where we begin using their silence to upgrade everything about who you are. Number 3. Detach from their silence, attach to your power. The less you respond to drama, the more peaceful your life becomes. And let's add to that, the less you react to their silence, the more powerful you become. Because here's the raw truth most folks aren't ready to hear. Their silence only hurts because you've given it meaning. You've assigned it value. You've told yourself that the quiet means something about you, your worth, your desirability, your importance. But what if I told you it means absolutely nothing unless you let it? Their silence doesn't define you. Your response to it does. See, my friends, too many people attach their identity to how someone else treats them. If they respond, I'm worthy. If they ignore me, something must be wrong with me. That thinking? That's emotional slavery. That's putting your peace in someone else's back pocket and praying they don't sit on it. You've got to detach. Not from them as a person, but from the meaning you've attached to their behavior. That's where the power shifts. When you realize their silence is not about you, but about them. Maybe they're confused. Maybe they're testing you. Maybe they're emotionally immature. Maybe they're bored. Or maybe they're just used to people falling apart when they pull away. But you, not this time. You're done being emotionally manipulated by someone's inconsistency. You're done reacting like every unread message is an earthquake in your self-esteem. You're done handing them your power like it's candy in a playground. You don't owe them a reaction. You owe yourself peace. Imagine your energy is a bank account. Every time you overthink their silence, you're making a withdrawal. Every time you send that unnecessary text, you're spending more than you have. Every time you replay the conversations, trying to decode what went wrong, you're overdrafting your emotional reserve. And what are they doing while you're draining yourself? Living, posting, laughing, ignoring, because they're not spending energy on you. So why are you bankrupting yourself for someone who isn't even making a deposit? Detachment is the art of saying, I saw that, I felt that, but I will not be ruled by that. It's not coldness, it's clarity. It's not giving up, it's growing up. Look, I get it. It's hard. You cared, you connected, you felt something real, and now it feels like all that just evaporated into a void. You keep waiting for that ping, that message, that signal that says, I'm still here. But what if that signal never comes? What if you waited so long that you missed your own chance to grow? This is where you turn everything inward. This is where the detachment begins, not out of revenge, but out of self-respect, out of emotional responsibility, out of the deep understanding that nobody gets to determine your peace but you. Remember this quote from Epictetus. We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them. Their silence is an event. What you make it mean, that's the judgment. And that's where the suffering begins or ends. So let's rewrite the story. Instead of "they're not replying because I'm not enough," you tell yourself their silence is just a reflection of who they are, not who I am. Instead of "I have to do something to win them back," you remind yourself what's meant for me never needs chasing. Instead of "I feel abandoned," you affirm "I am choosing myself even when they don't." That's how you shift from attachment to authority, from needing validation to radiating it, from being lost in their absence to being grounded in your presence. Every time they ignore you and you don't chase, you build strength. Every time you feel tempted to break the silence but choose stillness instead, you build self-control. Every moment you shift your focus back to your goals, your health, your joy, you build momentum. And before you know it, their silence becomes background noise. Their absence becomes irrelevant. Their power over you, gone. And that's when something wild happens. They start to notice. They feel the distance. They sense the shift. Because silence doesn't hit until it echoes. And when your silence becomes steady, powerful, unbothered, it starts to roar. They expected you to fall apart. They expected you to come crawling. They expected you to fold like you did before. But this time, you're doing something different. You're detaching. You're rising. You're redirecting everything back to yourself. And trust me, they feel that. So don't fear the silence. Use it. Let it stretch you. Let it mature you. Let it show you what you're really made of. Because anyone can scream for attention, but only the powerful can remain silent and still be heard. Say it with me right now. Type it in the comments. I detach to rise. Let that be your new mantra. Let it be your new armor. Let it be the turning point where you stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself. Because what's coming next, it's not just a mindset, it's a lifestyle. The more you detach, the more you attract. The less you chase, the more you become magnetic. And the more you focus on you, the less you even care who pulled away in the first place. Stay with me, because next up, we're going to take this energy and build something they never expected. A version of you so focused, so confident, so powerful, they won't know how to reach you, even if they wanted to. Number 4. Reframe the void. Silence isn't empty. It's full of answers. Silence isn't empty. It's full of answers, if you're quiet enough to hear them. Most people are terrified of silence. It feels like rejection, punishment, abandonment. It feels like being left alone in a dark room where your thoughts get louder than any voice ever could. But here's what no one told you. Silence is a mirror. It shows you what noise has always tried to distract you from. And when they go silent, they don't just leave space behind. They leave a message in that space, one that reveals exactly what you needed to see. But most people miss it. Why? Because they rush to fill the silence. They text, they plead, they explain. They beg the silence to stop speaking because deep down they're afraid of what it's saying. But you're not here to run anymore. You're here to listen. Imagine sitting in a cave, deep, isolated. All you hear is your breath, your heartbeat, and the occasional drip of water from the ceiling. At first, the silence is maddening, but after a while, your senses sharpen. You begin to see more clearly, hear more deeply. That's what silence does. It strips away the surface. It reveals the truth. And when someone you care about goes quiet, that silence starts telling you everything their words refuse to admit. You start seeing how much of the relationship was one-sided, how much effort you were pouring into someone who only met you halfway. You realize how often you were the one initiating, the one overthinking, the one making excuses for their distance, and suddenly you stop. You stop making excuses for their silence and start understanding its purpose. Because silence has a purpose. Sometimes it's testing you, sometimes it's teaching you, and sometimes it's protecting you. See, when someone stops talking to you, they remove the performance, the mask. They reveal who they are when they don't need anything from you. That's the version of them you need to pay attention to. That's the truth in its rawest form. You've been distracted by their charm, their words, their potential. But silence? Silence is brutally honest. And here's the wild part. The truth was always there. You just couldn't hear it through the noise of your own hope. Most people will try to convince you that silence means they're busy, they're unsure, they're figuring things out. And maybe that's true for a small percentage, but most of the time, silence is communication. They're telling you everything you need to know without saying a single word. Don't ignore that. Don't pretend silence is neutral. Because the one who truly values you doesn't go silent. They seek connection, they clarify, they show up. But the one who benefits from your confusion, they vanish. Not to think, but to watch. To see how much you'll tolerate. To see if they still hold the strings to your emotions. That's not love, that's control. So, my friends, this is where the reframe begins. This is where you stop fearing the silence and start reading it. Instead of seeing a blank space, see a message that says, this person isn't who you hoped they were. This isn't love, it's performance. You've been giving more than you're receiving. You were supposed to outgrow this. Because sometimes the universe whispers when you refuse to listen, and when you keep ignoring the signs, it stops whispering and starts removing. That's what their silence is. A removal, a redirection, a reset. It's not here to punish you. It's here to wake you up. You're not meant to chase ghosts. You're meant to heal. You're meant to grow. You're meant to realize that silence is not a void. It's a volume you've never dared to turn up before. It's telling you where you've been neglecting yourself, where you've been tolerating less, where you've been shrinking to fit into someone else's comfort zone. And now you expand. Now you evolve. Because silence is your invitation to rebuild, to stop pouring into people who only drain you. To stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, to stop waiting for someone else's voice and start trusting your own. So here's the truth. Silence doesn't break you, it builds you. The ones who sit in it, reflect on it, learn from it, those are the ones who come back stronger, louder, more certain. And when they come back into the world, they're not begging to be heard, they're choosing where to speak. That's power. Let them go quiet. Let them disappear. Let them watch your silence speak louder than any response ever could. And while they're confused by your calm, you'll be creating something they didn't expect, a life without them in the center of it. So right now, write this in the comments. Silence gave me clarity. Say it like you mean it, like the noise has finally stopped. Like you can finally hear yourself again, because that's what this part of your life is about now, choosing clarity over confusion, choosing peace over performance, choosing yourself over the people who disappeared when you needed them the most. And stick with me, because in the next section, we're going to talk about the mental training that will make you unshakable. So when silence comes again, you won't fear it. You'll welcome it. Number 5, train your mind to be unshakable when they disappear. You don't become strong by avoiding pain. You become strong by surviving it without losing who you are. Let's get one thing straight, my friends. People will leave. They'll vanish mid-sentence. They'll ghost you after making promises. They'll switch up with no explanation, no warning, no closure. And the worst part? You won't see it coming. One day they're here. The next, silence, cold, empty, confusing. That's the game modern connection plays. That's the battlefield you're standing on. And unless you train your mind, really train it, you'll keep getting knocked over by every disappearing act that comes your way. Because let's be honest, the pain isn't just that they left, it's that they didn't explain. It's the echo of your own questions playing back in your head. What did I do? Was I not enough? Did I push too hard or not hard enough? Your brain becomes a courtroom and you sit on trial for crimes you didn't commit. That's where the suffering starts, not in their silence, but in your self-attack. But what if I told you that moment, the moment they disappear, isn't the end? It's an initiation, a challenge, a test of what you've built inside your own mind. Because when they go silent, the world doesn't stop. The sun still rises, your breath still flows, your goals still matter. And if you don't anchor yourself to that truth, you'll keep living life like you're waiting for someone to come back and finish a sentence they already abandoned. This is where the inner training begins. Not in the gym, not on a battlefield, but in the 6 inches between your ears. The battlefield is your mind, and you either train it or it trains you to suffer. Here's what training looks like. Every morning you remind yourself, I do not chase, I choose. You wake up and repeat, I do not react, I respond. You go through your day with the discipline of someone who knows that peace is not handed to you. It's earned every single day in the way you respond to chaos, confusion, and especially to silence. Because silence is a test of your emotional endurance. Can you sit in it without begging for it to end? Can you hear nothing from them and still remember who you are? Can you be ignored and not start questioning your worth? The world breaks most people because they weren't trained for emotional abandonment. They were taught to attach their identity to feedback, to attention, to praise. But you're not here for applause, you're here for alignment. You're not here to be liked, you're here to be unshakable. That takes repetition, daily conditioning. You have to start rewiring the mental reflex that says, they're silent, so I must not matter. No, flip it. Train it to say, they're silent, and that reveals more about them than me. That's the reframe. That's the discipline. That's what separates those who spiral from those who rise. And don't get it twisted. This isn't about pretending you don't care. This isn't about bottling up emotions or putting on some fake, I'm strong mask. This is about creating a mind so rooted in truth that temporary silence doesn't shake permanent peace. Let me give you an image. Think of a tree in a storm. Its branches might bend, its leaves might fly off, but its roots, they hold. That's what mental training does for you. It anchors you. It holds you firm. So no matter who disappears, you don't fall apart. You stand tall. You're going to feel the urge to reach out. You're going to stare at your phone, hoping they text. You'll fight the impulse to explain yourself, to fix it, to seek closure. That's the untrained mind, reactive, emotional, desperate for resolution. But the trained mind, it pauses, it breathes. It says, I will not abandon myself just because they abandoned the conversation. And you train this mind with intentional effort. Every day, you meditate, you journal, you remind yourself of what's real. You stop checking their online status and start checking your own progress. You invest in your goals, you return to your body, you stay present. Because the moment you reconnect with yourself is the moment their silence loses its grip. Discipline is what makes silence powerless. Because when your mind is trained, you don't break when they disappear, you get stronger. You use their silence as a signal to double down on your focus. You get in the gym with more energy. You build your business with more clarity. You walk with more certainty because you're no longer waiting to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. You want to know what's truly powerful. It's not revenge. It's not getting them back. It's waking up one day and realizing you haven't thought about them in weeks. It's realizing your peace didn't come from their presence. It came from your discipline. And that's what I want for you. A mind so strong it doesn't beg. A heart so grounded it doesn't chase. A spirit so focused it doesn't get lost in games. Right now, I want you to type this in the comments. My mind is my fortress. Say it with fire. Say it with focus. Let it be your new armor. Because when you train your mind, silence isn't scary anymore. It becomes your sharpening ground. And what's coming next? We're going to talk about how the longer you stay quiet, the more control you gain. So stick with me. Your power is just getting started. Number 6. The longer you stay quiet, the more control you gain. Never interrupt your enemy when they are making a mistake. When someone goes silent on you, the first instinct is to panic. You feel like the walls are closing in. Your chest tightens. Your thoughts get loud. You want to reach out, explain yourself, fix the disconnection before it gets worse. But here's what they don't tell you. The longer you stay quiet, the more power shifts in your favor. See, silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. It's what the most dangerous players on the chessboard use when the opponent doesn't realize they're already cornered. Most people underestimate it. They think being quiet means you've given up, that you've backed down. But when you do it right, when your silence comes from strength, not surrender, it becomes your greatest move. Because the truth is, silence builds tension. Emotional, psychological, invisible tension that presses on the mind of the person who left you hanging. They might act cool. They might pretend they haven't noticed. But they do. Oh, they do. Because silence echoes. You're not responding. They notice. You're not watching their stories anymore. They feel that absence. You're not double texting. Their ego starts to itch. You're not trying to explain yourself. Now they're the ones with questions. And that's exactly how the power shifts. Because let's be honest, before this silence, they had control. They had your attention, your energy, your thoughts. But now they're staring into the void they created and realizing it's not as comfortable as they expected. Think of silence like gravity. It pulls, slowly, relentlessly. At first, they don't notice it, but as time goes on, it weighs on them. Questions start forming in their mind. Why haven't I heard from them? Are they mad? Have they moved on? Are they talking to someone else? Did they stop caring? And here's the most ironic part. Those are the same questions that used to haunt you. Now they're living in their head. That's what silence does. It flips the mirror. They expected you to react. You didn't. Now they're sitting in your old seat, wondering, guessing, replaying. That's control. But I know what some of you are thinking. What if I stay silent and they just move on? What if they never come back? Let me break that lie for you right now. If silence causes someone to forget you, they were never really with you in the first place. If distance makes them disappear, they were already on their way out. You're not losing anything. You're exposing everything. And if they do come back, you'll be in a different position. Because now you've tasted control. You've seen the strength in your stillness. You've felt what it's like to not need them to validate your presence. And when they come knocking, it won't be with the same power dynamic as before. That's the reward of patience, of stillness, of restraint. People who panic in silence lose themselves, but people who stay calm, they gain leverage. The longer you stay quiet, the more pressure builds, not just on them, but inside you. And pressure is what creates transformation. It forces you to sit with your thoughts. It demands that you become your own comfort. And through that, you evolve. You become more grounded, more focused, more dangerous. Because now you're not the one who needs the conversation. You're not the one chasing. You're not the one desperate to be heard. You've become the one they need to hear from, and your silence becomes their obsession. It's no different than walking away from a table where your time and energy were never truly valued. At first, they don't care. They assume you'll return. But the longer you stay gone, the more they start realizing what your presence meant. That's the price of taking someone for granted. You only notice what you lost after it stops knocking. And you? You don't knock anymore. You don't beg for crumbs when you've remembered you were the feast. So let me ask you, how long can you stay quiet? How long can you hold your power without needing to prove a point? Because the longer you do, the more control you gain. And that control, it's not about manipulating anyone else. It's about mastering yourself. That's real confidence. That's real strength. And the truth is, most people have never even tasted it. They live life reacting, needing attention, begging for response. But you're here now because you're done with that life. You're ready to command your energy, not leak it. Let them be confused. Let them sit in their silence. Let them think you're just not reaching out yet. Because the longer you stay quiet, the more they realize you don't need to. And when someone feels your absence more than they ever appreciated your presence, that's when the game flips. So here's your power move today. Don't say a word. Don't respond. Don't flinch. Let your growth be so loud that your silence becomes deafening. And type this in the comments right now. Silence is my superpower. Say it like you own it, like it's a sword you carry in your back pocket. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that you're not afraid of being quiet. You're building something. You're choosing control. You're mastering the storm within. Because next, we're going even deeper. You think they're unfazed now? Wait until you see what happens when your silence starts cracking their ego wide open. Stay with me. Number 7. Watch their ego. Crumble as you rise in silence. Your silence will teach them what your presence never could. Let's be real, folks. Some people don't value you when you're right in front of them. They get comfortable. They assume you'll always be available, that you'll always reply, that no matter how they treat you, cold, distant, dismissive, you'll still show up. And as long as you do, they don't change. Their ego doesn't flinch. Their pride stays bloated because you keep feeding it. But when you go quiet, when you stop explaining, stop chasing, stop reacting, that's when things get interesting, because silence is not just about absence, it's about presence. It's about what your absence forces them to feel. And if you've ever wanted to know what someone really thinks about you, disappear. Watch what happens. Watch who reaches out. Watch who notices. Watch who panics. Because while your words may have gone unheard, your silence, they can't ignore that. At first, they'll pretend it doesn't bother them. They'll scroll like nothing happened, post like they're on top of the world, laugh in stories, drop subtle hints, maybe even try to bait you with attention-grabbing posts. But behind all that noise is pressure that wasn't there before. Because for the first time, you're not playing your part in their little control game. You've exited the stage, and now their ego has no audience. That's when the cracks begin. Because the silence you're holding, it's like a mirror to their behavior. They start reflecting on what they said, what they did, what they didn't do, and most importantly, why you haven't responded. That stillness, it's psychological warfare, and it shakes the foundations of anyone who was used to manipulating your reactions. They start to feel it in small ways. They refresh their DMS, expecting your name. They check who watched their story. They post that quote just to see if you'll flinch. But nothing comes, nothing from you. just silence. And that silence screams, "I'm not who I used to be." It's in that space, between their pride and your peace, that everything shifts. Because you're no longer the reactive one, you're the composed one, the calm one, the one who chooses stillness over chaos, detachment over drama. And when someone who relied on controlling you through emotional games realizes they've lost their grip, their ego begins to crumble. But let's talk about you for a second, because this isn't just about them breaking down, it's about you rising. While they're trying to figure out why the puppet stopped dancing, you're out here building a kingdom of self-respect. You're using the silence to reconnect with yourself, to train your mind, to fuel your body, to sharpen your focus. You're not spiraling, you're sculpting. You're turning confusion into clarity, heartbreak into hunger, detachment into direction. Because while they were playing games, you started playing for legacy. Let me drop a truth bomb on you. Their silence was never about power. It was about testing yours. They wanted to see if you'd beg, if you'd crawl, if you'd try to win back the connection. But instead, you disappeared. And that is what they didn't expect. And when they finally realize they no longer have a reaction to control, their ego doesn't just shrink, it implodes. Because now they have to face a terrifying thought. What if I was never in control to begin with? That's the power you build in silence. And I'll say this with full conviction. Nothing humbles an inflated ego like your complete indifference. When they can't get an emotional rise out of you, they start having an emotional breakdown within themselves, because power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just walks away. You've probably heard this before. The one who cares less holds the power. But let me evolve that for you. It's not about caring less, it's about needing less. You can care deeply and still walk away with your head high. You can love someone and still let them go without a word, because your peace is not up for negotiation anymore. And when your silence comes from that place, from self-worth, not spite, it carries weight they can't measure and pressure they can't escape. And here's what usually happens next. They come back, not always with an apology, not always with awareness, but with curiosity. They start reaching out in subtle ways. The "hey" text, the meme, the fake check-in, the breadcrumb trail designed to see if they still have access. But by then, you've changed. You're not starving for validation. You're not wondering if they'll reply. You're not replaying their silence like it's a mystery to solve. Because now you get it. You've seen what your absence can do. You've felt the strength of not reacting. You've tasted the power of emotional control. And once you've had that, you never go back to begging. So here's what I want you to do right now. Type this in the comments. I rise in silence. Let that be your declaration. Let them feel it. Let the world see it. Let you remember it. Because the more you rise quietly, the louder your power becomes. And their ego, it won't be able to survive in the atmosphere of your transformation. Stay with me, because next we're going to talk about something deeper, something final. The moment you realize you weren't made to chase, you were made to choose. And when you choose yourself over their silence, that's when you truly win. Number 8, you weren't meant to chase. You were meant to choose. Don't chase people. Be yourself. Do your thing. Work hard. The right people, the real ones, will find you. Let's cut through the noise, my friends. You were never born to chase people who disappear on you. You were never meant to beg for love, prove your worth, or shrink yourself for a response. That was never the assignment. But somewhere along the way, the world convinced you that silence was a challenge, that when they stop talking, you must talk louder, that when they pull away, you must pull harder. But that's not power, that's panic. You don't chase what pulls away from peace, you choose what aligns with it. Because the truth is, The more you chase, the more you lose. You lose your dignity, your direction, your energy, and worst of all, yourself. But the moment you stop chasing and start choosing, everything changes. You choose peace over performance. You choose clarity over confusion. You choose to walk away from games and walk into greatness. And guess what? That silence they gave you, that was the best gift. It revealed everything you needed to know. It showed you where the respect wasn't mutual, where the connection wasn't real, where your energy was being drained instead of valued. And now, you don't just sit in that truth, you rise from it. So here's the final truth. You weren't made to chase love. You were made to become love. You weren't made to react to attention. You were made to radiate presence. You weren't made to wait for someone to see your worth. You were made to walk like you never forgot it. Now type this in the comments. I choose me, always. Let it be your final word. Let it echo louder than their silence ever could. If this message hit you deep, if you felt the shift, then do what powerful people do. Don't just think it, live it. Hit the like button, subscribe, and join a community of people rising in silence and walking in self-respect. Your next level doesn't require noise, just clarity, courage, and choice. You weren't meant to chase, you were meant to choose. And today, you choose you.